Good morning and welcome from sunny Freiburg. It's a pleasure to be here with you, although not actually be there with you, but I'm happy that and very grateful that I was invited to your conference. I wanted to share with you a story on how we in Eeklo, a small city in Belgium, rebranded energy as a local product. And because of that, we actually succeeded in broadening the public support for renewable energy. So if it's okay with you, I'm just going to start with a story that takes about 15 minutes. And of course, there's always an opportunity afterwards to contact me through social media or through the organization. Cool. So energy as a local product. Have you ever thought of energy as a local product? This question might seem a bit strange at first, but if you look at the evolution of energy throughout history, all energy used to be local. From the moment that we were hunter-gatherers to the agricultural evolution, all energy that we got from food, for biomass, for shelter, all of that came from our immediate surroundings. And this created a patchwork of diverse energy ecosystems that were completely aligned with the energy opportunities from the landscape. And until at some point, actually only 7 generations ago, this changed, and it changed the dimension of which we harvested energy. But it also changed the spatial dimension. Suddenly, energy wasn't no longer a local product, but it became a global commodity. And it also changed the time dimension from a regeneration cycle of only 1 year or a couple of years or a couple of decades to millions of years. And so all of these things we need to take into account if we want to switch to renewable energies, because we can have more added value for our local community if we look at the broader picture. Because one of the things, despite the merits that fossil fuels has brought us, it has also made us dependent. And if you look at Europe, this dependence goes up to 1 billion euro that we spend every day to import fossil fuels. And we import them not from the countries that we most like to, like Russia or Saudi Arabia, no, because we've grown dependent from them. And if you look at my small country, Belgium, this accounts for 20 billion euro a year. And even the city where I used to be deputy mayor of, Eeklo, with only 20,000 inhabitants, we actually are paying collectively 40 million euro for the use of fossil fuels in our city. So a very easy math calculation then will learn that this is about 2,000 euro per person per capita for every year. And if you would further then translate this in terms of the average wage and salaries, you see that on average, people in our city are working 10 days for foreign countries, and it even goes and especially if you look at the lowest wage percentile, the lowest 5% wage percentile, well, they are working 20 days. So this also puts the energy transition and how it differently impacts vulnerable households compared to the middle class. How this is disproportionate. This actually is very much expressed by this fact. So we started our energy story 20 years ago, and I always like to insert this slide to give some recognition to the godfathers of the idea, let's say. In the center, there's Dirk Walpert. He is a civil servant. And on the right, it's Jan de Pauw. He's an engineer of what is currently the biggest energy cooperative in Europe called EcoPower. And the EcoPower story started in Eeklo about 25 years ago. And it started with one simple public tender. And it's the difference with this tender is that apart from the classic criteria that you have in public tenders, like the financial aspect and technical qualities, this public tender also aimed for a minimum participation of 50% of citizens. So citizens actually had to become a partner or a partially owner of the wind turbines in order to get this tender. Eventually, EcoPower, as a full citizens cooperative, went in and offered 100% of participation, but that we'll explain a bit later. And it also had to include a communication plan to use these wind turbines, not simply as a way to generate energy, but actually as a way to capture this inside the whole transition. And only like a couple of months after we launched the tender, we already saw what we call the cooperative effect. And the cooperative effect was, first of all, that these wind turbines were approved without a single complaint. So there were no big lawsuits or any complaints by the neighborhood. They were skeptical, but they were not cynical about this. And then the second part of this cooperative effect was that the consumption levels of the people that participated in these wind turbines by buying a cooperative share, well, actually, we saw that their level of energy consumption was slashed by half only 3 years after the completion and of these wind turbines. So, which means that if their consumption is reduced by 50%, these 3 cooperative wind turbines that were built at the time, they were actually producing for 6 classic wind turbines, just because the people became partially owner of these wind turbines. And things evolved. So we're now 2003. In 2008, another 5 were built. 2 of them were also again cooperative. And then suddenly in 2011, we saw that the higher government, they saw like, hey, there's something strange happening in this small city of Eeklo. People are not complaining and protesting against wind turbines. So let's start a plan to put more wind turbines there, because the population isn't protesting like in other cities. And then we said, let's wait for a minute, because this did not come automatically. We have lessons learned from our experience with handling this. And so one of the lessons we've learned was that it needs good spatial planning. You need to see and consider the landscape, the energy landscape of your town, and then think of how it can produce for your town, because it needs to build up a narrative. And so our narrative was that we're going to build wind turbines that will be enough to provide electricity for our city and actually the neighboring 2 cities, but it had different, separate calculations of how much that these villages would need. So for our village, for our city, we needed 14 extra wind turbines. And so we set up like a spatial plan where, combined with these 14 wind turbines, the concentration zone here shown in the red, we also added an exclusion zone so that the people would know that this is a closed end scenario, that it was like, hey, this is what we need to make the full transition, and it stays like this. So it gives certainty and clarity to people. Of course, this was applauded by the rest of the city and the people living in the yellow areas. But of course, people living in the red area and the concentration zone were still a bit skeptical. And that's why we approached them proactively, even before the first building applications were filed in. So we approached them with the question, not if they were in favor or against wind turbines, but we reversed the question and we asked them what it would take for them to not oppose to the wind turbines, so to make it acceptable for them. And that's led to this proactive approach there, led to what we call the democratic support model for wind turbines. And it involved 25% direct citizens participation. So again, citizens of these 14 wind turbines could own 25% of that project. 25% of that project was about or supposed to be owned by the city. And then at the output side, additionally, every wind turbine had to contribute 5,000 euro for a local climate fund for the whole city, and then another 5,000 euro for a neighborhood fund for the people living in the concentration zone. And as promised, all 14 wind turbines were built without a single complaint. And if you want to know how extraordinary this is, in the rest of Flanders, in Belgium, more than 50, even up to 60, 70% in some regions of all applications are blocked by local neighborhood protests. And so we actually proved that if you include citizens, not only by having including through political participation, but really including them and having an economic participation, an economic benefit from these wind turbines, that you actually unlock the door to a lot of broader public support. And so if you would then look at what this means in numbers, so I use here the production, the consumption in 2019, because of course in 2020 consumption dropped due to COVID. But if you would look at that, what this means compared to the electricity production in 2020 when these wind turbines were built, well, actually you see that our city is, the electricity need in our city is covered by 130%. And that's great from the point of climate and CO2. But what actually is even more important is what it means in the economic balance, because in the business as usual model, landowners gets 25,000 euro a year for their contract. The energy company, they are making a profit of 250,000 euros every year after maintenance costs, after like paying off the loans and other debts to build the wind turbines. So this is 250,000 euro clear profit. And it goes even further. Last year, when we had the energy crisis and prices soared, this actually amounted up to 1 million euro. The energy company is harvesting on your territory through wind as a common product, and it's like being retracted from your local ecosystem. And so the comparison with the ECLO model is that this has become more balanced. The energy company and the landowner are still making a profit. So this is again a clear profit that without the participation of the citizens and the city, this energy company would not be making, because their projects would be blocked legally. So you see that in this second ECLO model scenario, the city and the citizens are making money. And if you would then it's a reasonable amount, but if you would multiply this with the 14 wind turbines, this is actually already like a substantial amount. And especially knowing that building permits in Belgium are valid for about 20 years, this is, well, an amount that you cannot ignore, because what we at that point said, okay, we're going to use this 18 million or almost 19 million euro to fund our energy entire climate transition. We're going to fund reforestation projects. We're going to fund adaptation measures with what the what these renewable energy sources are delivering. We had the electricity area covered. We then thought, okay, the biggest CO2 sector in our city is heating. And on the one hand, we are heating our houses with gas, and on the other hand, we have a big waste incinerator in the north of our city, also emitting CO2. But apart from that, also emitting residual heat from their industrial process, and that residual heat is actually enough to cover not only our city and the entire heating need of our city, but 150% of our city. And in that sense, we again want to apply the same principles from the public tender that we used with wind, namely, okay, the financial criteria, that needed to have a revenue for the city, the technical criteria, but most importantly, again, the criteria of citizens' participation and a good communication plan. We went to the market. We were successful. There was an interesting candidate, which actually was a joint venture between, on the one hand, a multinational, and on the other hand, a citizens cooperative. So that was also the first in the world to be able to merge the principles of big industry and of local ownership. And we agreed on this three-step process, where at the first step we would be looking for direct benefits. So if there's a company with heat production, and there's another additional company next to it with a heat demand, or there's a school or a highly dense neighborhood, we would connect them up. In the second step, we would connect all these heat pearls together in this one big network, where this exchange would not be just between these two companies or this neighborhood, but actually on a broader scale, like fueled by the waste incinerator. Of course, this waste incinerator, and it's in the third step, wouldn't be there forever, because ideally the level of waste generation would drop. And at that point, we would actually also decentralize the entire production for this district heating network, so that people with a solar boiler and the heat pump would actually decentralize, be producing not only for themselves, but the residual capacity that they have with their installation could actually be used to exchange heat and to optimize what they have as production capacity in their homes to provide for the bigger district heating network, and also get partially a revenue for that. So instead of giving premiums for individual solar boilers or heat pumps, we would actually be paying them for the heat that they would contribute to this district heating network. So we have the heat and the electricity production covered, but then we were like, we went even a step further and said, okay, what if we maximize this scenario? Because there's still rooftops that we haven't covered yet, and we sort of, if you think of your system as an ecosystem, it would be a shame to leave all the rooftops uncovered in the city. And so there are two things that you need to put solar panels on your roof. That's first, you need to have a roof, and you need to have capital. But sometimes the people with a roof don't have the capital to invest in solar panels, and sometimes the people with enough capital to invest, they don't have a roof because they're renting. Or they live in an apartment, for instance. And so we wanted to connect these two, and again create a public tender where we would first go to the city, ask all the people who wanted to join with their property in this plan, and then put all the roofs of this collective on the market. Again, there was a cooperative interested in doing so. And by that, we connected the both. And with all these three big energy pillars combined, we calculated that we have the potential of reducing CO2 by 126.5%. Of course, this would then make our city not only carbon neutral, but also carbon positive. But that is not the main point, because if you remember from the beginning, the difference and the vulnerable households, that for me, that's the centerpiece. That's why we should be doing this, not only for creating the energy transition for itself, but also to use this energy transition as a lever to keep added value local, and also as a lever to help people out of this poverty cycle. And so what we did was, if you remember this democratic support model for energy, for wind, for our wind model, you will remember that we have 25% of these wind turbines owned by the city. But at that point, we said, okay, what can we do with this, these shares? Because they're not getting us a lot of dividends, but they are getting us a lower energy price, because, locally produced. We're not a for-profit cooperative. So what if we would lease them these shares, these social shares, to households in poverty, so to the people that do not have a home to rent out the roofs, or capital to buy this first share of this cooperative. And so the difference in the price of the bill last year went up to 230 euros. So in 1 year, actually, this social share was paid back to just with the difference of the market price. And so if you want to protect your citizens to fluctuating electricity prices, you just need to start a cooperative and then include them. And the benefit of this whole thing is not only that it is reducing electricity bills, but more important, it is reducing these electricity bills through the energy generation of renewables. And so if there's one clear proof that you want to show to your citizens that actually this transition can be beneficial for all of them, this is actually the way to do it, if you ask me. So 230 euro. And then the CO2 story is also important for the already convinced. But actually, if you can create the system to connect the dots on the right way, this is, if you ask me, the way forward. And so this is actually it. I want to conclude with the idea that I do not consider Eeklo as a special case. I mean, Eeklo is a small conservative city in a rural community, and with zero budget for our energy department, and only a half-time employee working on these energy projects. So what we did was we used procurements and public tendering in a very creative way to create the levers to help our citizens to reinvent energy as a local product, to keep the added value local and the ownership local. And so for us, the solutions were in the waste, in the wind, and in solar solutions. But if you're living close to a river, or if you're living close to the sea, these energy solutions will be in the landscape that you have. So thank you for your attention, and do not hesitate to contact us either through the organization or directly on social media. Thanks a lot, and good luck with your own local energy transition. Thank you.